Hi, friend, and welcome to this episode of Radiant Resilience. We are always looking for new guests on the podcast. I want to highlight you if you have a story of resilience that inspires others. Everyone has a story, and I believe that sharing yours can help others feel less alone. Are you ready to share your journey and inspire others? I want to hear from you. Every story has the power to impact lives and foster a supportive community. If you have a tale of overcoming adversity, personal growth, or a unique perspective on life's challenges, I would love to have you as a guest on the podcast. To become a guest, please email us directly at radientresiliencepodcast@gmail.com or click the link in the show notes to become a guest. Join us in spreading hope, strength, and inspiration one story at a time. Be brave and share your story so others feel less alone. I hope to see you soon. Hi, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Radiant Reflections. I really enjoy doing these episodes, but I haven't done too many. So this is episode number 2 of Radiant Reflections, just a little solo episode of me, if you haven't listened to the previous one, just talking about updates on me and different topics. I did a post on my Instagram earlier this week or a week ago or so that I asked everybody how they felt about rejection. So that is a topic I would love to talk about right now. It's something that I'm struggling with heavily in my life right now. Rejection comes in so many different forms, right? So there's being rejected by someone telling you no to a request that you had, or a friend rejecting you, or a romantic relationship rejecting you, or a family member rejecting you. So many different forms, and it's terrifying to me. Okay, maybe terrifying is being a little bit dramatic, but I don't know. I am a hairdresser, and I feel like I have experienced rejection from clients so many times in the 20 years that I have been doing this job. And even that has been in different ways too. But that is really what I have been struggling with more recently, is that, and then I'll touch on a couple of other things too, but the fear of rejection, I don't know. I don't know why there's such a fear there, because what's the worst that could happen? In some cases, it's that they just tell you no and you're in no different of a spot than you were before. But in other cases, it can feel very deep. But in the hairdresser world, it is really tough because we build relationships with clients, these deep personal relationships that I feel like are so important, truly. I try to connect with every single one of my clients every day on a deeper level than just, hey, what do you want on your hair today? I, just like this podcast, I want to know their stories. I want to know who they are. I want to know more about their heart and soul. And I want to have that deeper connection. So then I work really hard to build that connection. And then sometimes they decide to go to someone else or whatever. And I guess that's usually when I feel the most rejected, is when people go and find a different hairdresser, versus if they move, then I know at least it wasn't something that I personally did. But when people fire me as their hairdresser, I take it very personally. I take it to heart, very deeply to my core. Because I think that I value those relationships sometimes. I know that I have some amazing clients right now that value me very much. But I also know that I think I put a lot more stock and value into some of those relationships than they do, because at the end of the day, I'm their hairdresser, right? I'm not their friend necessarily. I'm just the hairdresser, the person that does their hair. So it's been something that I've been really struggling with lately, especially for some reason. It's been a part of my career for the whole 20 years I've been doing it. People come and go, just like friends come and go. But more recently, it's hit me harder than it used to. And I'm not really sure what to do with those emotions. And in my posting, I don't feel like I found an answer to any of that. So unfortunately, in this episode, I won't be giving any answers to that, but just working through it on my own. And I think a lot of it has to do at the end of the day with your self-worth, right? Because you tie your self-worth into these relationships or this thing that you're asking for. And then when you get told no or they leave you, you don't think you're worthy. And I know that's part of my issue with hair. I'm like, oh, when they leave me, maybe I'm a bad hairdresser. And that's what I think it does. It creates doubt too, right? So now I'm questioning myself. What did I do wrong? And I just automatically assume I did something wrong. And maybe in some cases I didn't do something wrong. But I personally end up over analyzing and over critiquing everything that I did or could have done and trying to figure out the mystery of what I did. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, am I a shitty hairdresser? I don't think I messed up their hair, but maybe they just weren't happy with it. And then I'm like, I question my skills and I question myself as a person, and it really starts to diminish your self-worth. And I think now that I'm just talking about it, I feel like those two are tied together heavily, is your self-worth. Because when you get rejected or you get told no, all of a sudden you're like, oh, shit, I'm not worth what I asked for, or I'm not worth that relationship, or I'm not good enough for that. And through my infertility journey, my self-worth has absolutely been violated. It's building back up. It's a slow process of building my self-worth back up. But when you are trying to do something like that, in my case, that is so supposed to be just natural, it's supposed to happen, everybody's supposed to be able to do it. And when it doesn't happen and it doesn't happen and it doesn't happen and it doesn't happen, it wrecks you. Absolutely wrecks you and your self-worth, because you think, I'm not worthy of this. Some higher power in the universe has determined that I am not worth being a mom. I am not worth my body is not worth being able to do this thing. And I blamed myself so heavily. Ooh, I think that's the first time I've actually used the word blame in a past tense. Friends, you're getting this live. These epiphanies are coming to you live. Wow. Wow. Yes. So I blamed myself for all of that so heavily that my self-worth just kept getting chipped away. And that was a rejection too, right? Me not being able to have a baby. That was a huge rejection in so many different ways. And then, blaming myself for not eating the right thing, for not taking the right supplements. Maybe during my 2-week wait, I shouldn't have lifted that heavy thing that I had to lift because nobody else was there to do it. Or like, it's so easy in so many different aspects, I think, to just constantly blame ourselves. And I think that maybe that is where the fear of rejection comes from. And I would love to know more thoughts on this. Feel free to go to my Instagram page. It is linked in the show notes here to, if you don't follow me already, to comment on that even after this episode comes out, because I think there's so many conversations that can be had about rejection. I have been afraid at many times in my life to ask for something I want. So let's use the example of asking for a raise or asking for something at work. If you're told no and you get the courage up to finally ask for those things, and maybe if you're a business owner out there and you have employees, please keep this thought in mind. But if you finally get the courage up to ask for that raise, to ask for whatever it is you want to do at work, that new position, ask for a promotion or any of that stuff, and you're told no, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not worth more money. My work is not worth more money. And that is heartbreaking, that you dumped your heart and soul into this job or whatever it is. And then you are made to feel unvaluable. And I think that I just am really feeling right now that is where these two come together, that your request wasn't worthy enough, that you weren't worthy enough. And that's got to be where the fear comes from. One of the comments I got was, I think it's natural and normal to fear rejection. And I think that's true. I think everyone out there fears rejection to some degree. I think we're taught it and scared of it probably from a young age, especially with trying out for teams or groups, interviewing for jobs, or expressing interest in someone else as a friend or romantically. Which, let's talk about that for a minute too. Rejection from a friend can be so heartbreaking. And then, especially romantically, you put your heart on the line, you put it out there, and that person says no. And that's really hard. But at the same time, I've been in the shoes of this person in this relationship is not serving me right now, and it is actually a detriment. And I have had to cut some people out because of that. And I know that's probably heartbreaking to them as well. And it was heartbreaking to me too. I grieved those friendships crazy. And I still think back. So I met my husband in high school, if you don't know much about my background. And so I've been very fortunate that we have been together since then. I never had to do the dating thing in my 20s or anything like that. But I remember relationships that I had in high school, and I very vividly remember the rejection from one relationship specifically absolutely broke my heart and soul. And of course, when you're a teenager, everything seems a lot more extreme, but I very vividly remember all of those emotions. And then the people who I broke up with too, I feel really bad and guilty in full transparency about hurting those people. But at the same time, that was not serving me in that moment. And I think that's something that maybe we can keep in mind and give those people grace for is if you're the one that's being rejected, keep in mind that as hard as it may be, that maybe there is a reason behind it and maybe you'll never understand it, and that's okay too. But I know that's easier said than done for sure, because I have had a few friendships that have fallen through. And like I said, my clients, I sit there and I think about nonstop what I did wrong. Some of them I know, and that still breaks my heart and soul. I have lost some very dear clients over things that I do know why I lost them, but it still hurts. And then I still have to grieve that loss pretty heavily. But I really do dump my heart and soul into people, friends, family, relationship, like clients, you name it. I do try to give my heart and soul to as many of those people as possible. And so that is absolutely heartbreaking when it doesn't pan out or it doesn't, go the way that I want it to or that I think it's going to go. Continuing on from this comment, however, I think the greatest thing I've ever heard was you should always at least ask if you can do something you're interested in, because the worst thing that can happen is they say no. But what if they say yes? You never know, so you might as well just put it out there. Ask for the raise. Ask if you can be involved with something. If anything, it puts your foot in the door and it at least puts you on that person's radar, right? So I do agree with that. I do think as much as fear of rejection is there, I do think we still need to push through that fear if you can. And because I think when you push through that fear, you're also growing so much as a human, even if you're told no, even if someone says no. The fact that you got the courage up and to push past that fear and ask is huge, right? That's a huge growth moment for you. And maybe the more you ask, the more confident you'll get. Maybe not the more you hear no. Sometimes I think that makes it worse if you hear no over and over. And then I know I've been in situations before where I just quit asking. And then you need to really evaluate maybe the job that you're at, the friends that you're friends with, or whatever the situation may be. Another comment said, I saw your post about rejection. Rejection was always my biggest fear. I've gone to some great lengths to not be rejected. My divorce was a turning point for me. Finding out my husband left us for a weekend to have an affair was the ultimate form of rejection. I spent so many nights depressed and crying, wondering what is wrong with me. I've come to learn that rejection is a part of life, and I really don't think he was rejecting me. I think he was rejecting a life that he knew he wasn't fit for. It was a tough pill to swallow because I hadn't dealt with much rejection. Ooh, friend. Yes. Mm. Wow. What a story. I know that divorce, I think, is a huge form of rejection, right? Because either one person or both have decided that it's not working anymore. And yes, absolutely. But I think that's huge when it comes to relationships, friendships, family members, thinking about what they're going through and giving a little bit of grace, as hard as it may be as you're dealing with your own rejection, helps so much, right? Because this person at the end of the day, they said, I don't think he was rejecting me. I think he was rejecting a life he knew he wasn't fit for. Ooh. And what work do we have to do to get to that point? Because this human, I think, has done so much work on themselves that to get to that point, forgiveness too, in that type of a situation, you have to have come to a place of forgiveness in order to get past that, I think. Another comment, fear of being true, authentic self in order to be good enough or accepted by others. Hard to stand up or express true opinion. OMG. Friends, I struggle with this one so much. And again, I think this one comes down to self-worth, right? Whatever you think you are worth or not worth. If you have high self-worth, I would say that you are probably putting yourself out there and you don't give a shit what other people think. And you don't care if you're good enough or accepted by others. So I think it still comes down to that, but so true. I have a really hard time standing up for myself and expressing my true opinion because I fear hurting other people's feelings, which sounds so ridiculous as I'm saying it out loud, but I do struggle with that, expressing my true opinion because I'm afraid I'm going to hurt somebody or make them. And that comes definitely from my own insecurities. And also, I'm a people pleaser. I want to make people happy. It brings me so much joy to make other people happy. But what I'm trying to work on and learn is that I shouldn't do that at the expense of myself, right? Being true to myself and my opinions. And you know what? Sometimes if it hurts people's feelings, it's going to hurt people's feelings. Like I can't protect everybody and I shouldn't change who I am in order to make them happy. So those are my thoughts on that. I think that is a lot of self-worth. Someone else just said such a relevant topic for so many of us. And I think this is so true because I think we all have some fear of some form of rejection, right? Like it may not be all of it, but we all do. Another comment, I think rejection can have a close link to our self-worth a lot of the times. Hey, so true, my friend, so true. I think those of us who have had a hard time being ourselves or struggle feeling worthy enough, we tend to feel rejection because we don't want to disappoint. So good. We are probably putting aside a lot of ourselves to be something we think others need rather than accepting ourselves and feeling worthy within our bodies. In my own experience, I remember a time when I was only in first grade. I was quiet and didn't have any friends yet. I was on a field trip and we had to pick tables to be served our lunch. I walked over to a table that had one spot open and a group of girls talking. Oh boy, I'm starting to get mean girl vibes. I sat down and one of them said to me that I couldn't sit with them because they didn't want to be friends with me. Oh my goodness. Hi everyone, it's Tawny from Radiant Resilience. I have some exciting news. I've been nominated for an award in the Women in Podcasting Awards under the category of Inspiration and Motivation. I'm so honored and I love your support. If you found any inspiration or motivation from this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to go online and vote for Radiant Resilience. Please visit the link in the show notes. Your vote means the world to me, and it helps us reach even more people who might need to hear these stories. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. I truly appreciate you. Well, you guys, this is somebody in first grade. My niece is currently in first grade, and if someone did this to her, this absolutely breaks my heart. Ugh, they told me to leave, so I did. But that small, quick moment of being rejected for just being me really stuck with me, which is so wild to think about how those core moments can make you fear rejection in bigger forms later on. Oh, my heart just broke for this little first grade human. You guys, I want to cry. And I think that our fear of rejection as adults definitely stems from those moments when we're kids, right? Kids not being accepting. And kids, it's so hard with kids because in first grade, oh, I want to give those kids the benefit of the doubt, but I'm having a hard time with that. That was just mean. Kids can just be mean sometimes. And then I feel as you go through life, it's just going to build up and build up that rejection. Unless you can learn and push past that and learn to love yourself more and learn to trust yourself and learn to know that you are worthy. Oh, this brings me back. I know I've mentioned this book several times on this podcast, but last time I think I did my Radiant Reflections, I was reading Jamie Kern Lima's book, Worthy. And if you have not, read that book because your self-worth, you will learn so much about worthiness in that book. It is so good. Again, Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. I will link it again in these show notes. I think I linked it in the last ones for the last Radiant Reflection. But yeah, rejection, not a fun thing, super difficult to deal with. I don't have any answers, unfortunately, other than, like I said, work on loving yourself, work on loving yourself and acknowledging that you're worthy. And I fully understand that is difficult to do. That is not an easy ask whatsoever. It is hard, and takes a lot of work. So find whatever works for you in order to do that, whether it's reading books, whether it's therapy, whether it's energetic healing, whatever you need to do, journaling. I think if you are able to build up your self-worth, then the fear of rejection is a little bit less. And I also think that age helps with that too sometimes. The older we get, I know the older I get, the less I care about certain things. So sometimes it's just easier to deal with in that regard. But yes, let's all work on our self-worth, self-love, and fear of rejection. Because I think we're all dealing with some of that, right? We all get rejected to some degree in life, for sure. It's a part of life. The one comment said it absolutely is a part of life, the part of everyone's lives. So I think that's the end of my TED Talk with rejection. Now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an update on me. I am actually getting ready at the time of this recording. I am leaving this weekend to go to Pakistan and Oman for 3 weeks. So I'm super, super pumped. Those who know me know that I love to travel. My husband and I have traveled all over the world. So these two countries are not completely out of the ordinary for us. And a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, okay, Tawny and Colin are going to Pakistan and Oman. Yep, that's not out of the ordinary. I'm really excited. We're only going for 3 weeks. We're doing 2 weeks of hiking in the Himalayas in Pakistan and then 1 week of beaches in Oman. And we rented a car there. So we've been prepping for this trip. We had to get visas in advance, which was a little bit of a complicated process. We rented a car and we have been doing research on all the things. I'm really excited about that. I'll do another Radiant Reflections when I get back at the end of September of 2024. I don't know whenever people are listening to this episode, but I will do another episode recapping that trip. But I am really looking forward to going and hiking in the Himalayas and just doing some healing work in the mountains, in the nature, disconnecting a little bit. Don't worry, I've got podcast episodes scheduled the entire time I'm gone, so you won't miss a beat. It's like I'm still here, but I'm just super excited. I need a break. This year has been extremely heavy for me and my family, and just a lot. There's actually been a lot of death in our lives this year, and so many things, from pets dying or getting diagnosed with sicknesses that are terminal to family deaths and beyond, friends losing family members. It has been absolutely heartbreaking, tough, and has been weighing so heavily on my heart. And also trying to, me personally, at the same time, I'm trying to heal from my journey and my process. And it's been hard to work through that at the same time that I am experiencing all this other grief and everything else that's been going on. So it's 2024. Me and several of my family members would agree that this has been even worse than 2020 and the pandemic and things like that. It's been a tough year. We've been very fortunate. My sister and I were just talking the other day about how fortunate we've been to not have a lot of death in our lives up until this point. And then all of a sudden, the universe has decided to throw it at us all at once. And it's really tough. So, anyone out there who's dealing with grief, my heart goes out to you so much. It has been just so tough. Grief is a tough thing. So yeah, that is an update for me as far as my healing journey. Nothing new has really come up. I did want to talk about this for a minute. A few weeks ago, I received a text message from a girl that I had connected with who was also going to my clinic that I went to for my infertility treatment last year. And there were a bunch of people that were up in arms about the nurse practitioner who was working there doing the embryo transfers. And a lot of people were angry and they wanted to say that she wasn't qualified and blah, 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 blah. It was this whole thing. Okay. So I'm not trying to start any drama or shit with the clinic. But when I received this information and then articles were sent to me, I was grateful that this person decided to share this information with me because they had my best interest at heart. They were thinking about how this would affect me because this is the person that did all of my embryo transfers. And an interesting thing to think about, I had actually reached out to one of my friends and I was like, what do I do with this information? And to be honest with you, I did not even open the articles right away. I just saw the titles of them. And then I asked this person, I was like, okay, I haven't had a moment to open these. What is this? What are they saying? Can you summarize it? And I never actually opened the articles because I don't know that's going to help me to sit here and question the doctor's office. And to be honest with you, an embryo transfer, for those out there who don't know, is very much like a pap smear. It's not, they take the embryo, they put it in a catheter, and they put it in your uterus through your cervix. And I feel like unless you ruined the embryo somehow, which it's usually the embryologist that is putting it in the catheter, and then I just feel like that's something that's pretty difficult to fuck up, basically. But there are people out there that are sad and angry, and they think that is possibly what happened to them. Here I'm at getting this information while I'm going through my healing journey of trying to process what happened to me, try to figure out what my future looks like, because I still don't know what that looks like. I've just been trying to get by. I don't know what I have said many times. I don't think I'm going to be doing treatment anymore. And that being said, is it really going to help me to look back on last year and blame the doctor for that? I don't know how to take that information because it's not going to change how I feel about treatment moving forward. And I don't have the energy in me to fight that battle if it's one that can even be fought. This woman did thousands of embryo transfers. So to say she's not qualified seems a little over the top to me. Every job that you do, you have to learn it to some degree. So I do feel like this woman did a fine job. I personally do not have anything against her. But it did make me question it in the moment. I'm like, ugh. When I did get a little angry, but I decided not to open the articles and I decided not to go down the rabbit hole because I just couldn't. And I don't think it's going to change anything. I have done that with this process so many times where I have gone back and reflected and gone over what I did wrong. I mentioned it at the beginning of this episode. What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? Which is why I just kept doing it over and over. And every time I was changing something and doing something different because last time this didn't work and blah, blah, blah. And if I keep going down that path, I am never going to heal from this, ever. So at the end of the day, decided to open those articles and to move past it. So again, I'm very grateful to the person that shared them with me because I know they had my best interest at heart and they wanted me to have the information, and I really appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I had the choice to do something with it or not. That was an interesting thing that came up as far as my fertility journey goes. But yeah, so we're just getting ready for a trip, ready for a break, ready to see a different part of the world. And yeah, if you ever have any questions, comments, concerns about any episodes, or if you have a topic you want me to discuss at some point on here, please feel free to email me or connect with me on Instagram. That's a really good way to do that. And all of that information is in the show notes of every episode. And also, Radiant Resilience is up for an award with the Women in Podcasting Network's awards that they're doing. So if you haven't already, that is all linked in the show notes as well. Please help us out and go vote for us, please. Because I say us, this is a me podcast. By us, I mean me and all my guests. Sure, that's what I mean by us. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all of my listeners who listen to every episode. And if you only catch a few, thank you also for your love and support. I am frequently amazed by how wonderful people are in the world. I think we live in a world right now where it seems scary and it seems like there's a lot of bad people out there. And while I won't deny that there are bad people out there, I think there are a lot of good people out there that are being overshadowed by the bad. And I know it's easy for us. I am guilty of it 100% to focus on the bad and not the good. And I think right now, especially, we really need to focus on the good in the world because it does exist. And there are some amazing humans out there. Every guest I've had on here has been amazing and has an incredible story to share. And I think we just all need to give each other some more grace and love and compassion. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this little update. And I will touch base with y'all when I get back from Pakistan. But again, please always feel free to reach out on social media if you want to connect. I love all my listeners. I love all my guests. I truly am so grateful. All right. I love you all, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the stories shared, please consider following us on your preferred podcast platform. Your ratings and reviews make a huge difference. They help us reach more listeners and continue bringing you engaging, insightful content. We appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Until next time, keep listening, growing, and sharing.